Picture this. You and I, we're going out to get coffee or tea or margaritas. And you say, Kelsey, I'm looking to buy a house this year. Here are the 5 things I'd probably tell you right away. And not because they're difficult, but because they catch buyers off guard all the time. I've helped nearly 100 people buy and sell real estate throughout my career so far. And it's always the same surprises, mistakes, frustrations. So these are probably the top things I would tell you. And now before you start scrolling on Zillow late at night, you're in bed, you're like, ooh, I could totally see myself in this house. Here are the 5 things I wish every first-time homebuyer knew. Starting off with number 1, the perfect house probably doesn't exist. I know that's not what anyone wants to hear. And every buyer has a specific list of wants and needs. So maybe you need a 3-bed, 2-bath, big backyard, fenced in for a dog, great location, updated kitchen, all within a certain budget. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with having a wish list. And one thing I tell my buyers all the time, there's going to be trade-offs. There will be compromises. Maybe this one has perfect location, but the kitchen is dated. Or maybe the kitchen is perfect, but the house is way smaller than you originally wanted. Maybe it checks every box except for one. The buyers who end up the happiest are usually focused on finding the right house, not the perfect house. Number 2, get pre-approved before you start looking. I just did a video on this, and this is actually what prompted me to do this one too. This isn't the exciting part, it's not sexy. But getting pre-approved first can save you from a lot of heartache. I've had plenty of buyers fall in love with houses, and it turned out they weren't qualified for that budget, or they weren't even qualified to even start the buying process yet. I've also had buyers who weren't quite ready yet, but after a few months of planning and preparation, they were ready to successfully buy. A lender can tell you exactly where you stand and to let you know what your options are. Even if you're 6 months or even a year away from buying, it's very valuable information to have. And trust me, you'd rather know that now than later. Moving right along to number 3. Just because you're approved for a certain amount doesn't mean you need to spend that amount. This is one of the biggest misconceptions with first-time home buyers. So basically, a lender may tell you you're approved for a certain price range, and that's great information to have. But typically that number represents the maximum amount you may qualify for, not necessarily the amount that you're comfortable paying every month. Once you get pre-qualified, and once I start working with buyers, I ask what that amount is, but I also ask every single time, what are you comfortable paying every month? And then, I tell them to take a look at their budget, take a look at their lifestyle. Like, do they have kids that are in sports? Do they like to travel? Are they saving for retirement? You really have to plan month to month what that looks like for your situation. I've had plenty of buyers who approved for significantly more than what they ended up spending. And they ended up being very happy with the comfortable payment they had rather than stretching themselves to the limit. At the end of the day, the goal isn't to find the most expensive house that you qualify for. It's about finding the right home you can live your life in. All right, guys, number 4. The first house you love may not be the house you buy. It happens way more often than you think. You walk into a house and something clicks. You're like, yes, that's where my sectional is gonna go. That's where the Christmas tree is gonna go. You just imagine you and your family living life in there, making breakfast, sipping coffee on the porch, and then something happens. Maybe another buyer gets it. Maybe you go through inspections and it uncovers major issues. Or maybe something just changes. And it's happened so many times. It's so disappointing and it can be so disheartening. But here's what I've learned. My clients who have missed out on a house ended up finding one they liked just as much, if not more. So if you lose out on a house, or if one just doesn't work out, don't just assume that opportunity is gone. Trust me, keep looking. It'll be worth it. All right, number 5. Are you ready for this? Buying a home costs more than just your down payment. This gets home buyers every single time. We've got some of my first-time home buyers using VA loans or USDA loans. You got 0% down. They're like, I'm gonna get a house for free today. That is not always the case. You've got inspections, you've got appraisal fees, you've got utility startups, you've got moving expenses, closing costs, title fees. And that's not even once you're in the home. Once you're in the home, there's all this stuff you want to do, even if it doesn't need that much work. You're like, I really want to replace this old smelly carpet. Or I really like some new countertops. And then there's the things you don't expect. Like you're moving in, it's July 6th, it's hot as heck outside, and your AC stops working. It happens, and you're a homeowner now. What are you gonna do? Now, the goal is not to scare you away from buying. The goal is to just be prepared, plan ahead. You know, the most you can be prepared financially, trust me, the smoother it will be. At the end of the day, buying a house doesn't have to be so overwhelming. Most of the stress comes from the unknowns, you know, not knowing what to expect. That's why education is one of the most important parts of my job, and it's the part that I enjoy the most, because the more informed you are, the more confident you'll feel when it's time to make these big decisions. And even if we're not working together, you can take this information and you can ask the realtor you're working with. And I hear from my buyers all the time, you know, oh, sorry for all the questions. Sorry I keep bugging you. Sorry this, sorry that. There are no dumb questions. There's never too many questions. If you're doing this for the first time, like, how are you supposed to know? Ask the follow-up questions. You know, if something isn't totally clear, you want to feel the most confident about what you're doing. This is one of the biggest purchases of your life. I feel like a broken record, but if you're thinking about buying a house at any point or in the near future, please feel free to reach out. Even if you're in the planning stages or the pre-planning stages, or you're like, Kelsey, I don't even know what I'm planning for, reach out anyway. Reach out. Even if you don't know what to ask, I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. And if this video was helpful at all, make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Remember, you got this. See you guys next time.